Hello and welcome to another episode of our Brothers Creed podcast. We're talking about motivation, experiences, and exploring the world around us. We're the Thomas Brothers. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Jared. And today we talk with Brent Fenton, who is the Firefighter Fenton character. He's a social media influencer, but also he's a real firefighter in real life. And he's out of Arizona. He talks with us about some of his experiences with firefighting, with just being in that realm. We talk about coping with difficult experiences. He shares with us about how he has built his social media presence and how laughter and comedy can help relieve the toughest of situations. And so it was a great conversation. He shares a great story with us about one of the fires he was involved with, and you guys will really enjoy this episode. So let's go ahead and dive in.
All right, let's do it.
You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket.
We will not go quietly into the night.
They tell me you're a man with true grit.
I am the one who knocks.
Don't ever tell me what I can't do, ever!
That's how winning is done.
Hey, Brent, welcome. We got Brent Fenton on today. He's a firefighter out of Arizona, social media influencer / star. Love your videos, by the way. They're hilarious. We found you on Instagram, which is, I think, where you're the biggest. Are you on? I think you are on TikTok, right?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok's actually my biggest.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I first saw you on Instagram, and then I think Ethan saw you on TikTok.
I found you on TikTok, yeah.
And I was like, man, this guy's hilarious. And also, love your experience as a firefighter. So thank you for coming on today to chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I guess one of the first things we want to chat about is just how did you get into firefighting? I'm just kind of fascinated by the career of a firefighter. I guess a little bit of background. Ethan and I are both. I'm kind of a data scientist. I work in the banking sector, and Ethan is similarly. He works in finance, and so it's kind of foreign to us. The whole firefighting career. So definitely interested to understand how you got into it and how it's gone.
Right. So, like you said, I'm in Arizona. I come from a public safety family. My dad did 26 years with Phoenix PD. He retired as a sergeant. He is one of four brothers. His oldest brother, my Uncle Jeff, did 25 years with Phoenix PD, and he retired a K-9 sergeant. And they had another brother that did 20 years with another city in Arizona. And then the fourth brother, he works for a local gas company. So the black sheep. I was actually, yeah, they would say he's the smart one. So, I actually was gung ho to be a police officer. And I love the forest. And so I was on track when I graduated high school to go to Northern Arizona University. I was going to get my forestry degree, and then I wanted to work for the Forest Service and be a forest ranger. Yeah. So I figured I wanted to be a cop, and I love the forest, so why not be a cop in the forest?
Yeah, hey, exactly.
So towards the end of my dad's career, when I was this wasn't really towards the end of his career, but in his career, when I was getting ready to graduate high school, he was promoted to sergeant. Tragically, he had one of his officers was ambushed, and he was killed. So my dad took that very, very hard. And so my dad, he felt pretty responsible for what happened. He wasn't even there. It was the guy, his name is Mark. Mark was going to go to a scene, or a bar basically, that's in South Phoenix. It's a pretty rough area. And his previous sergeant, he'd always said, "Hey, I want to go work this bar. There's a lot of crime there, a lot of drug activity there. I want to go in there and run that stuff out of there." And his old sergeant was like, "You're wasting your time. Don't do that stuff. Whatever. It's stupid." And his old sergeant wasn't necessarily like a go-getter. He didn't, really was just trying to avoid paperwork, things like that.
Yeah.
So my dad got promoted, became his sergeant. Mark said the same thing. "Hey, this is the area I want to go do." My dad's like, "Yeah, get after it, man. Go out there, make a difference." And when he went out there, that's ultimately where it happened, when it happened. And so that's why my dad felt a huge, weight and a burden and responsibility for what happened to Mark. Obviously, it could have happened to anybody. But so my dad, that being said, my dad said, I don't want to go to my son's funeral one day. I don't want you to be a police officer. You should go talk to some of my buddies who are firefighters. So I was like, okay, I never thought about the fire service, but yeah, I'll go check it out. So I went on a ride along. Went and did a ride along at one of his friends' stations. He was a ladder captain. He let me ride like 24 hours, which is like unheard of. You don't let people ride 24 hours, and especially now me being on the job, having a visitor for, exactly. Having a visitor for 24 hours. You're like, okay, you can only entertain people so long. So, but they got a house fire at like 2 a.m. I remember jumping on the truck, taking off, going lights and sirens down the road to this house, pulling up, seeing smoke and fire coming out of the roof and the windows. And then it spreads to the neighbor's house. And I remember seeing the guys jump off the truck and one of the guys pulling the hose and they just kick in the door and they just disappear in the smoke and fire. And I'm just like, yes, this is amazing. This is what I want to do. Forget police officer. This is what I want to do. And so how many
years ago was this?
So I was 18, so that was 21. I'm 39, so that was 21 years ago. So it's crazy.
Wow.
So I started testing, going on ride-alongs, getting to know people, getting to know really what the job was. I went to EMT school, and I was actually in EMT school when 9/11 happened, and then I ended up getting hired full-time as a firefighter in 2004.
Oh, nice. So did you do volunteer firefighting before that?
No. So in Arizona, there's not really very many volunteer. Everything pretty much out here. So I'm a career firefighter. Everything out here for the most part is full-time paid career. So I got hired with my department at the time. They had reserves, which are almost like, it's like an explorer. It's like you were an extra guy. It's really to help get you experience. And really, honestly, what benefit to the department is it's kind of like an extended look at whether or not they want to hire you for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So
you're a prospect.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So
that's awesome.
And so I did that for 8 months. And then when they tested full time, I tested for them and they liked me enough from my reserve experience. And
so is it like there's like a police academy. Is there like a similar type of thing for firefighting?
Yes. So there is a fire academy. So, when you get picked up by a department, they send you to, it's like a regional academy here in Arizona. There's 3 of them. And it's down in Phoenix. There's also one in Glendale, and there's one in, I believe it's Mesa, some of the other cities. Anyway, it's not important, but there's these regional academies where they send everybody down there. You all get the same training. It's a 16-week academy. You go Monday through Friday. You're there super early. You're getting there. Especially, it depends. If it's a summer academy, you're starting at like 4 a.m. just because they want to get out of there, by like 1 or 2 because it's going to be
hot,
insanely hot.
Because it's Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not safe.
So do you do more? I mean, you have a specific department. I'm guessing that department is in a city that has a population. Do you do more urban firefighting, or do you also get involved in rural or countryside firefighting, wildfires, stuff like that?
Yeah. So my department, we are a district, so we cover 3 towns. And so we cover a large portion of the county areas too. So it's a very diverse makeup in my department. So we have the city atmosphere where you got the big buildings, the suburbs, the houses, everything like that, fire hydrants, things like that. But then we cover 250 square miles. So it's a big area. And so we also have the more rural communities where it's people that live on, multiple acreage property, where you can have a multi-million-dollar home on 2 acres right next to somebody who's living out of a school bus.
Yeah.
circled the wagons.
No zoning.
Exactly. And it's very diverse. And you do have a lot of open land in that the wildland, and for us in this and the area where I'm at, it's all desert. And then we have the main, it's actually the fourth dangerous highway in the country, runs right through about 40 miles of my department, right straight through. So that keeps us very, very busy. We get a lot of trauma, car wrecks, you name it, anything and everything. The freeway brings everything. So,
wow.
Is it true that I think I was told one time that like anytime there's a 911 emergency, they always send a fire truck. Like there's always a fire truck involved, or like if it has anything to do with, I don't know whether it's someone at night has a health issue, or whether it's a car crash or whatever else. I mean, you think that they would send just an ambulance or just a police officer, but how do firefighters get involved at that point?
Right. So now it's one thing that I've learned through this whole like social media journey is I've met firefighters from all over the country, all over the world, and we do the same job, but it's also very different in a lot of places. So locally, so locally in Arizona, and in the Valley, the greater Phoenix area, it's all career firefighters. There's no volunteers. We're all career. Every fire truck has 2 paramedics and 2 EMTs. I'm also a paramedic. So how the system works here is the 911 comes into the dispatch center. They decide, they basically filter out whether it's a police or a fire situation, and fire situation meaning an actual fire or an emergency medical. So then they dispatch we have what's called the Phoenix Regional Dispatch Center, and it dispatches 28 departments. And regardless of the city that it's in or the area that it's in, all the jurisdictional boundaries are erased, and they send the closest unit. So you could live in the city of Phoenix and you'll have a city of Glendale fire truck pull up, or city of Peoria fire truck pull up, so it's a really great system. It is very unique to Arizona. I do believe there's a couple other cities in other states that have adopted it, but for the most part, it's very unique system that we have here. It's awesome because those 28 departments, we all speak the same language. We have the same standard operating procedures. We can talk on the same radio frequencies, because I know like back east in some of the other areas, you can have 4 departments show up to help each other out. They got different radio channels. They train differently. So it's kind of it's archaic almost. There's a lot of tradition, a lot of pride that goes into it. I bet, so, yeah. So, and I don't want to say the West is more progressive, but there is progress out here that it works well. I won't say that we do it better. We just do it different.
Yeah. What's the difference? I know, excuse my ignorance here, but what is the difference between a paramedic and an EMT? What?
Oh, okay. So an EMT is basically, so it's like they say basic life support. So it's an EMTB. So they can do, they're trained in CPR, wound care, like bleeding wounds and shock, things like that. Not very invasive procedures. Now, as a paramedic, I can do, I start IVs. I have a drug box with 38 different drugs that I can give. I can do endotracheal intubations. I can do surgical airways, that's the crike where you cut the throat and do that whole deal. So I can do that in the field, things like that. So it's a paramedic is advanced life support, and EMT is basic life support.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I would think that anybody really, everything. I think every man should have basic like EMT experience, like know how to treat a wound, know how to give CPR, especially if you have kids, stuff like that. Whereas like the paramedic is like kind of the next level, like if you're in the Army, it's like the medic, it comes in.
Right.
It helps you with more advanced stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's just you're exactly right. It's just having the skills to act when something is needed, not just stand by and shock, and I mean, I get there's some people who just don't have it. It's just different, but I definitely having some level of know-how, the jack of all trades thing, I think is important.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you've just been totally shocked and you just didn't, you're just maybe at the beginning of your career you were just like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know what to do here?
Not to sound like arrogant or anything, but no, I mean we train a lot.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen. And that's the big thing is they say, we're 911. So if things go bad for us, who do we call? So we
exactly.
we can't let it go bad. Not figuring it out is not an option. You got to do it, And so, we're paid professionals. So, our job is to come in and bring calm and order to chaotic situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we train a lot to know our jobs, know it well. There's that saying where it says, when stuff hits the fan, you're going to rise to that occasion. And that's not true at all. You actually fall back,
training.
They say you fall back on your basic level of training. And so when you train so much and it becomes like second nature, regardless, you just act.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah. It's rising to the occasion is you can't learn something that you didn't know before you get there. It's not just going to like spontaneously pop into your head and, oh, I know what to do now.
Right.
You fall back into probably what your comfort zone is and say, okay, well, I can do this and this and this and this because I've practiced it a million times.
Exactly.
I like that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, so you said like you cover certain urban, rural areas as well. And I'm sure that there's all kinds of, forest fire trainings and, you talk about some of these guys that are what they call hot shots, where they like jump into an area, then they just battle the fire from the inside the fire. I mean, that's probably that's probably like a little bit of a different level than they probably solely do that. But do you guys do these types of trainings to be able to manage wildfires?
Yeah. So my department, we're primarily a structure department, but we do, like I said, we do have that wildland urban interface where there's more rural. So every one of our members on our department are trained and certified as a wildland firefighter. Like wildland firefighting has its own separate certification than it's called a red card, which is separate from the structure firefighting certifications that we have. So yeah, it's very different tactics. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different way that we talk to each other, in the sense of like just even in the order model of how we talk, and just like the tactics that we use. With structure fires, you have, for one, a lot of the time you have a hydrant or you have some sort of water supply. And you have a 4-man crew. You're wearing completely different gear. You're wearing the turnouts, the SCBA, which is the self-contained breathing apparatus. You got all that. You're going into a building. There is fire science involved in that, and how fires burn. And we know how fires burn and where they like to go, and all things with flow paths and some stuff that I know is going over here. But then with wildland, it's very, very different. You're not going into buildings. You're wearing, Nomex pants, a Nomex shirt. You're wearing boots, hard hat, work gloves, no breathing protection. Sometimes all you have is a hand tool. Sometimes you have a bladder bag, and the weather is a huge thing. And they say weather, fuel, and topography are the big things those are the main three that affect wildfire spread and growth. And you're depending on a lot of other resources, a lot of air resources. You see the airplanes, helicopters, things like that, and they're able to tell you, and we depend, like we talked about the weather, every wildland firefighter has got a basic level of almost like a weatherman, know how to read the weather, read the clouds, because it truly does affect your safety out there.
Yeah. Earlier we were talking about how you kind of, for lack of but we use the word prospect for a department, right? You go in, you kind of have a trial period to see if everything works out or it feels good. What is the camaraderie like in a fire department? I mean, I'm guessing you guys, to a certain extent, well, number one, you and those you work with are in life and death situations, and you have to rely on another person potentially for for help or assistance or whatever else it may be. How does that, as well as, I don't know if you have like shifts where you live with people for a certain amount of days on and off. How has that built like camaraderie within a team, and how does that feel to have that?
Yeah. So, it's a great question. Um, so I work 48-hour shifts. So I do 2 days on. So 48 hours on, 96 hours off. The schedule is called 48-96. That's another thing that's different all around the country. Some people work that. For a large portion of my career, it was 24-48. So 1 day on, 2 days off. I love the 48-96. Sometimes the 2 days can get long, but the 4 days off makes up for it immensely. It's awesome. And then there's other schedules that are just different. But that's what I work. And so, yeah, when you first get hired on the department for your first year, you go through a probationary period where you're called a probie, a booter, a rookie, whatever you call it. We call them booters. Those guys are kind of the butts of all the jokes. There is,
They get to take out the trash and
there's an element of, you are, you do it all basically. And then we've all done it. We've all paid our dues. We've all earned our way. But it helps you appreciate the job that you have, because it is extremely competitive to get into the field. Very, very competitive. Sometimes you can be testing with thousands of people for less than 10 jobs. Wow. It's very competitive. So it kind of teaches you to appreciate what you have. It shows the crew, your work ethic, things like that. It's the little things, like when guys are doing things when nobody's looking, speaks volumes when they do about things that they do, and just their character. Like you said, we do work in the life and death situations. The majority of what we do as firefighters, especially on the West Coast, it's about 85% of what we do is medical calls, and only about 15% is fire. And that attributes to, fire codes and different safety measures. Every building's sprinkler, things like that. So fires get knocked out pretty quick. You ask a firefighter, that's very unfortunate for us because we like to run fires.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I'm sure that medical calls could be very traumatic to people that arrive on scene and stuff like that. I mean, just as hard, I'm guessing, in a different light, right? Maybe it's maybe not as physically demanding, maybe as emotional demanding, or it's just hard in general to see what,
like car accidents.
You get
people getting lots of types of accidents. I mean, this isn't just people having heart attacks and stuff,
Yeah, no, yeah, we literally run on everything, and so I think the camaraderie that draws the bonds so tight and these relationships so tight is that we spend a third of our life with these guys, with each other. We fight like families, we get along like families. We laugh, we joke, we argue, we cry. Like I said, it's a great job, but it's people only talk about the awesome parts, and there's not so awesome parts. And like you said, it can be very traumatic. We do see the worst of the worst, and we're the first ones there. And I think that kind of transitions throughout your career of how it changes, but we can talk about that later. But to come back to the camaraderie, the job is awesome, but it can also suck, like really suck. And whether it's because you're just getting your butt handed to you physically on a fire, or just on whatever it is that you're doing, there's a saying that says, we're the lubrication that keeps the wheels of society moving, because people call 911 for literally anything and everything. And so when you're just physically exhausted, or when you're running, a call involving a child that's been, run over by a parent in a driveway, which, unfortunately has happened multiple times, or drowning calls, or, the old woman who just lost her husband of 60 years, things like that. Those are not normal things for people to see.
Yeah.
We do see it. And you have to have coping mechanisms. And part of that is your crew, and you just hanging out. And that's it. The big thing is everybody's experiencing the suck, if you will. And
together.
You're all in that. You're in it together. you're grinding through it. And so that builds those bonds, and you get to see, your buddies at their highest and celebrate the wins when people get promoted, or when people get hired full time, or when they have babies, or they get married and things like that. And then you get to experience the lows professionally of the calls the bad calls we run on, or, when their loved ones, even in our, like I said, we're a family. So sometimes people on our crews, sometimes their family members die, and unfortunately there's guys that have had marriages end. And so you're there through all of that. And it's, we've had members whose children have died. I mean, it's just, you're just there through all that. And so it truly is, it's a very unique profession because it's a job, but it's also a family.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was those coping mechanisms that you employ when you run into a situation where you come up with something that's very traumatic. I mean, you say you've got kids. I mean, something that is one of my fears, or something that I'm always cognizant of, is like leaving a kid in a hot car, or like backing over a kid. Like, I got kids running all over my street and all over my driveway all the time. And so I'm so conscious about that, because I'm like, that would be like my worst nightmare, is to like leave a kid in a car and just like forget,
Yeah.
How do you cope with that? I mean, I think that is so helpful to people trying to cope with any type of a thing. And since you're in a situation where you actively have to cope with these things in a healthy manner, and not just drink it away, or, do other things, how do you do that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot, there's a lot of guys that don't cope well. They do drink it away. There's a big substance abuse problem. There's suicide issues in first responders. And I mean, honestly, it comes down to, for me, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I have my faith in Jesus. And so I know, I know that this life isn't it for me. And so my faith is very helpful with coping. I pray a lot. But I'm also, I have a family. I have something outside of the department. I think that's a big thing, is having something outside of the profession of a firefighter. A lot of guys, they eat, sleep, breathe, bleed the fire department. And that's great. Like, I'm proud to be a firefighter. I love this job. I love going to work every single day. It doesn't feel like I'm even going to work. But I have so many more things that I am outside of it. I'm not a firefighter who happens to be a dad and a husband and a brother and a friend. I'm a husband, a father, a friend, a brother first,
and then a fireman.
And then a fireman. I'm also an idiot who wears a fake mustache on the internet, but like, but that
First
also
couple videos I watched, I was like, is that thing real?
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, it's just...
You would be surprised how many people think it's real. But and honestly, that, I mean, for me, and hobbies, things like that, all that kind of stuff, you have to have an escape. You have to have something where you can just turn that off. And I'll be honest, there are some scenes that you just can't turn off. And so you have to, fortunately, the fire department is very good at supporting mental health. And so there's a lot of resources. I mean, I've spoken to counselors, and the big push now is like erasing that stigma of like, you're weak, oh, suck it up, get over it. And it's like, there is an element where I'm just like, all right, freaking get over these things or whatever. But there is also an element of like, we see really, really bad things, experience really, really bad things that is not normal or healthy for any human being to experience. So if you're having an issue, go talk to somebody. I'm not going to judge you. I don't care. If you're having an issue, I want you to be healthy. I want you to get over it. And so go talk to people. And so, I think the biggest thing for me is, I have my faith, I have my family, I have my social media where I love to make people laugh. And so for me, comedy is a huge, comedy. People always say, oh, comedy is the best medicine, or laughter is the best medicine. But for me, it truly is. I enjoy, I know that that's how my brain works, and not everybody works that way, but that's why I like to make content that makes people laugh, because it's just good for everybody.
That's a great answer. Yeah. I mean, I think that's so hopeful. You can find refuge in your faith and in your family and in your hobbies that you like to do. And I feel the same way. By trade, I'm a data analyst, but I feel like that's not really who I am. If someone asks who are you, I'm like, name all these other things first, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and I work at a bank. I do analytics.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's so important. I really like that. I was wondering if maybe you could share maybe a story or two, just like a memorable story of being a firefighter and fighting a fire. Maybe could you give us a story about when you're fighting a fire, just how that was, and maybe one that just sticks in your mind, and then maybe of one a medical call that you've come up on,
or any like interesting or funny calls that you've gotten in the past.
Love to hear some stories.
Oh yeah. That's the best thing about being a firefighter is the dinner table stories where you just get the hilarious stories or the crazy stories, all kind of stuff. I mean, every firefighter could write a book that people would read and go, there's no way this happened. No, the movie Final Destination is just the tip of the iceberg of things that actually happen. And you're like, there's absolutely no way stuff like that happens, but it really does. The craziest fire story, I've actually never talked about it before, like on any kind of podcast. So it's exclusive.
Yeah, seriously.
But
we're gonna advertise that.
Yeah. But so I was working at one of our stations. We were dispatched. I was the captain, which is so like on the trucks, there's 2 firefighters, an engineer, and a captain. So the captain's like the boss of the truck. So I was working as the captain, and we got dispatched, came out as a debris fire. So, and it was in the summer, middle of summer. So anytime you get any kind of fire, you take all the trucks. So at that station, it was in the area, one of our areas that doesn't have hydrants. So we have a water tender. It carries like 3,000 gallons of water. So you're bringing the water tender because you got to bring the water. The fire engine has 750 gallons. So you got like 3,750 gallons to play with until you can get more help there with other units and things like that. So, and then we also bring a smaller truck called a brush truck. And that's the truck that is primarily used for wildland fires. So pull out of the station, make the left, look off in the distance. I can see a column of smoke. I'm like, yep, this is going to be a working fire. So I get onto the radio. I call the dispatch. This was in an area that we had just recently taken over. So we were kind of operating on 2 dispatch systems. This area was very north and out of the area that we're normally at. So that'll play into the story later. So I call for more resources because I can tell this isn't a bad area. It's that day, I think it was like 112 out, 5% humidity. So everything is ready to burn, Yeah. So we're dressing out for wildland because that's what it kicked out as. And that's what it looked like. That's what the smoke looked like. And you can, obviously, like I said, through our training, I've learned how to read smoke and know what's a structure fire and what's, not a structure fire. Yeah. So responding through, we go underneath the freeway. And when we come out from underneath the freeway bridge, the smoke has dramatically changed in density and in color. It's now jet black and it is thick. And so now I know, okay, this has gotten into something more than just bushes. So as we crest this hill and make a turn in the neighborhood, we pull up to the front of this house. And there is a large fire in the back and the house is actively on fire. And as we pull up, we take command, I'm giving an on-scene report. So I'm letting the alarm room know, we're on scene of a single story residence. We have an obvious working fire. And I'm telling them, here's what we're going to do. Basically we're pulling this size hose line. We're going to be going in and we're going to be doing search and rescue for, victims and fire attack. And we're going to be offensive. And that's what we call it. Then I take command. And we do our thing. Well, while I'm doing that, mind you, we're also dressed out for wildland, but it just shifted gears at the last minute. So now my crew is split because 2 of my guys are bringing the other 2 trucks. So now, while I'm giving this report, I see the front door of the house open up and a woman come walking out. And you learn when you come on these scenes. So when you first start out, they call it that camel moth syndrome, where you got the brand new guy and he's just like, oh, fire. And he goes right to the fire, but he doesn't see anything else going on around him or a medical call or whatever. He doesn't see anything going on around him. So as you get more experience, you learn to take it all in, especially as the captain, you have to take in the big picture because you're responsible for everybody. And you just have to get the lay of the scene. You got to see all sides of the building, everything. So I notice in the front yard, I see, some kid toys, and along the side yard, I can see a trampoline. I can see, like a Power Wheel. So I'm like, okay, this home has children. So I have to let the alarm room know. Also be advised, we have victims inside the home, and I just basically drop the mic because, it's time to go to work. I'll update them later, but I need to get in there and get people out. But I also have to first change my outfit, because I was wearing the wildland stuff. So now I have to jump into my turnouts and get dressed out. And, we're testing on everything in the fire service. And so you're tested, you need to be able to go from in standard street clothes to wearing your complete turnouts, everything, breathing apparatus, the whole deal in a minute and a half. And so it's stripped down from all the other stuff, jump into the other stuff. Mind you, it's like 112 out. It's insanely hot. And then my crew's coming up, and I'm like radioing them saying, hey, get up here, get your structure gear on. We're going inside. So we got to do that. So then we're pulling our hose lays. This lady comes out. I run up to the front door. My engineer is helping me get the hoses. I run up to the front door, and there's a sheriff that comes up, and he's like, what do you need? I'm like, I need you to help me get these people out of here. So I run up, and the lady sees a bush on fire, and she goes, oh my gosh, my front yard's on fire. And I was like, and I don't know how she didn't see the giant shade that was over her, which was the towering column of smoke. And I said, ma'am, your house is on fire. You need to get out. And she turned around and she goes, oh my God, my babies. And she runs right back in the house. And so I run in after her and I grab her. I'm like, man, and mind you, I'm just wearing my pants. I don't even have all my stuff. I just have my pants. I'm like, man, you need to come with me. She's like, my babies are in here. So I'm like, we will get them. Let's go. So the cop grabs her, takes her out. I run out. I get my stuff on. We pull the hose. We go inside. And so she's saying babies. I see the kid stuff. I'm thinking there are children in this house. We need to go in there. So me and the firefighter, we pull our line. We go in. The home is already filling with smoke. We see a couple cats, a couple dogs. There's like a bird in a cage. So our priority, number one, is life safety. We need to make sure that we need to get these kids out of the house.
Human life safety.
Exactly. Human life safety. Yeah.
Birds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do try to salvage any kind of life, but the number one priority is going to be human life safety, pets, and then property. And our life safety obviously is wrapped up in that human life safety.
Yeah.
So we go in, smoke is banking down quickly, immediately recognize that this is a hoarder house. It is stuff, debris up to the ceiling, little pathways through the home.
Oh, wow. That's dangerous.
Just extremely dangerous.
You get caught in there and then you're on fire. It's a recipe for disaster. It's a death trap. So we go in, we start making our way back to the back hallway. The smoke it's super, super thick. So now at first when you get in there, you're walking, your head's kind of in the smoke a little bit. You're looking around, you can still see everything pretty good, but we're making our way back. And then you can see that the fire is working in a back bedroom. We're yelling, hey, fire department, come to us, come out here. You don't hear anything. You don't see anything. And now the smoke is banking down. It's getting very thick. It's the heat is starting to become immense. So it's pushing us down to the stomach. We can cool the environment with our hose lines to make it more tenable for us and any victims that we find. Mind you, we're still by ourselves. There's nobody else there. It's just us, just me and my nozzle men going through this house. We start going back. Visibility is now starting to get down to zero. It's starting to get very hot. And then we get reports that it was not children, it was pets. So now, at this point, I've now transitioned to, okay, we're not dying over stuff and we're not dying over pets, because we have in our training, we will risk a lot, including our lives, to save a savable life.
We will risk a little to save savable property, and we won't risk anything to save what's already lost. This house is a hoarder situation. That's a firefighter death trap. So immediately it's a write-off. We're done. And so I tell Nick, we're getting out of here. So we start backing out. You know, we're still trying to put the fire out, but now that we know that the life safety aspect is taken care of, there is a large volume of fire in this home at this point. It's starting to come across our head. It's looking like what's going to call like a flashover scenario, which a flashover scenario is where everything in the room reaches its ignition point at the same time and instantly lights on fire. And smoke is just unburned products of combustion. So smoke is flammable. So the smoke catches on fire, everything. And so the temperatures can surge 2,000 degrees and it kills firefighters. It's a very deadly environment. So we start backing out, start trying to attack the fire, make an effect on it. And you can realize, you can learn pretty quickly based on what you're doing. If you are using a certain tactic and it's just not working, and under normal circumstances, it should work, that's a big signal to be like, okay, we need to change up what we're doing. This is not a good situation. We need to get out of here. So we started working our way out. We ended up going defensive on the home, which means we just wrote it off. And so we pull ourselves out to the exterior, and now we want to start protecting exposures. Now, mind you, this has all been going on for, 15 minutes or so. This station, like I said, this was a new area that we had just started to take over. So the next closest station is, let's see, what is it? 15, 20 miles away. The engines only go so fast on the freeway.
Especially loaded with water.
Right. And when I was talking about that dispatch system, so this new area was on a separate dispatch system. So there was a huge breakdown in communication when I'm telling them, hey, I need more resources. There was a huge delay in them telling our primary dispatch, where the rest of our department was dispatched from. Now all that's taken care of. We got rid of the old dispatch. Everybody's in the same one. When we ask for stuff, we get it. So there was a big delay. The second truck didn't get there for 35 to 40 minutes. So what happened was we're in there, we're going defensive. We're protecting our exposures. And the exposures included other homes, trying to keep the brush from spreading for this taking off to be a wildfire and taking out multiple homes. There's motor homes, there's vehicles, all kinds of stuff around this house and trailer and all kinds of stuff. So while we're in there, come out, we have to go switch out our air bottles because we run out of air. Because you're working, you're huffing and puffing. Again, like I said, it's super hot. Switching our air bottles.
You're outside at this point, right?
At this point, we're now outside.
You're still breathing oxygen. You're not just. Okay.
Yeah, you would have to, and even the conditions had changed, because when we first pulled in and where we parked, it was a great spot. Fire smoke standing straight up. There's no wind. Well, now when I come out, I can't even see the engine because the smoke is laying down. The wind has now shifted, and it is pushing the fire over on us. And so now we're in exposure. So we're trying to protect our fire engine. We're trying to do all that stuff. Well, then we start to run out of water because we don't have any backup or any resources. And there's only so much we can do. So we start to run out of water. And as we run out of water, I'm giving my crew orders, hey, I need you to go take that water tender, go fill it up and come back. My engineer says, hey, we're about out of water. So I'm like, okay, we're out of water. We're out of air bottles. This is not good. We're in exposure. Now our lives are in danger because this fire is pushing behind us. Finally, a second truck gets there. And our battalion chief was the second truck. The battalion chief gets there. He takes command from me. I kind of give him a breakdown of what he gets. Shortly after that, another engine, he assigns that other engine to protect the fire that was pushing up the hill that was now impacting a second house. So they get assigned to go protect that house. Unfortunate for us because we're in a very, very crappy situation at this point because now we're out of air bottles, we're out of water, and now we're a huge exposure. So tell the engineer, hey, we're cutting our lines, we're getting out of here. And I let command know, hey, we need to we need to abandon our position. We're out of water. We're in exposure. We're not in a safe location. We need to get out of here. So I get out, I say, let's go. We just break our hoses off. We just leave it because it doesn't matter at that point. Just leave the hoses, get this truck out of here. So we go to back the engine up, and there was a power pole that had caught on fire, and the power pole right behind the engine. So now live power lines are blocking the engine, and there's nothing we can do. So I looked at my engineer with no water. So I looked at my engineer and
abandon the vehicle.
We're both like, the writing is on the wall. This is going to happen. Like, this is horrible. So I'm letting command know, hey, things just went from bad to worse. We have no water. We're abandoning our position. We're blocked in by power lines. We have to get out of here. We're not in a safe location. And he's like, okay, get yourself in a safe location. And then I'm like letting him know, the truck is going to burn. And now he realizes, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. So I tell my engineer, roll up the windows, get anything out of here that we can. We need to get to that road now, because now we're kind of being surrounded by fire because there's brush and all that kind of stuff. And the fire has now spread around the side of the yard. This truck that's up on the hill is protecting the other home that the fire is impacting. And this is burning around us. And now there's the RV that was on the property is on fire. Their van is on fire. Their car is on fire. They had a trailer there that was on fire. Everything is on fire. And then on the other side of the yard was a shed, and that was next to our engine. And fire had, spotted on some brush, burned back, caught that shed on fire. That shed apparently was full of nothing but lumber. And so that shed caught on fire. And ultimately, when we had to leave, that fire spread to our engine, and it actually burned up our fire truck. Wow. It was a very humiliating experience for me as a firefighter, as someone who's working in the captain's seat, who's responsible for the truck. That was, you don't lose your truck. We always say everybody goes home at the end of the day. So that was a crazy, crazy experience. Everybody did go home. A couple of us ended up having to go to the hospital. I myself went to the hospital. I had rhabdomyolysis from that.
What's that?
Basically where it's overexertion of your body, and your body starts to break down your muscle tissue, and it can send you into like renal failure and things like that. It can be a life-threatening condition. Fortunately, it wasn't. If it goes untreated, it can be. But went to the hospital a couple of days, had to have multiple IV fluids and things like that, and was able to. I made a full recovery. It's totally fine. But again, that's another thing. That's a shot to the pride. Nobody wants to be transported. Nobody wants any of that kind of stuff. But you know what? It happened. I learned a ton from it. My fire chief at the time was awesome. I saw he was actually out of town when it happened. He got the phone call, and he knew it was bad when he's getting a phone call from multiple chiefs. And first thing he said was, "Who died?" And they said, thankfully nobody died, but we did lose a fire truck. And he's like, I don't care. As long as nobody died, I don't care. And so when I saw Chief, I was like, hey, Chief, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I'm ashamed. And he's like, why are you ashamed? And I was like, well, it's my job to take care of my crew and my stuff. And he's like, is your crew okay? I said, yeah. He's like, well, then you did your job. And he's like, that's what insurance is for. He's like, I can give two craps. He's like, I burn up fire trucks all day as long as everybody goes home. And then he actually said, you actually saved us a lot of money, because it was one of our oldest trucks that we were getting ready to surplus. And he's like, we probably would have got 10 grand at surplus for it. He's like, and now insurance is writing us a check for the full value of that engine when it was brand new. And he's like, I should be shaking your hand. I'm like,
you're like, I'll just take 10% of that.
That takes a load off. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? He was like, did you learn something? And I said, Chief, I learned more in that hour of my life than I did in the 15 years of being a firefighter at that time that I had. And and he said, well, then that's a win. He's like, it's only a loss if that happened and you didn't learn something. So that was insane. That was an insane experience. I make a lot of joking videos where I or I poke fun at things people are doing. But the thing is it's all happened, and I can laugh at myself.
Yeah.
I can admit when I've had failures. I can admit when I've had wins. We work in the field of crap happens, and sometimes, just like on that day, it happened.
Happens to you, yeah, exactly.
So
that's a crazy story with a really cool kind of moral to go along with it as well, is that, sometimes you learn the most in trial, right? You learn the most when things are the hardest. And thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm long-winded, but yeah.
Hey, no, that's great. Well, we do want to hear about, we want to hear about your social media presence and how you took on Fenton the firefighter character. What can you tell us about that and how you got started doing that?
Yeah, so my whole life I've loved to make people laugh. People always said, "Oh man, you should be a comedian." Like, even when I was a kid, you should be a comedian. You're hilarious, this and that. And I was kind of like, "Oh, whatever." I just like to make people laugh. It's just fun. And I would be at work and making guys laugh around the table, and guys would say, "Dude, you missed your calling. You missed your calling." I'm like, you can only hear that so many times before you start to question, like, did I miss my calling?
Yeah.
And so, guys would just, say, "Hey, you should do stand up or whatever," and this and that. And I was just like, I'm like, my dream is to just, like, I love making videos. I love that kind of stuff. My dream would be able to make videos or do movies or that kind of stuff. And I don't even know how to do that. But I was like, social media was starting to pick up. This was back in I got a YouTube back in 2007. And I just made little funny videos here and there, but it wasn't anything fire department. It was just random things I thought was funny. But then my department does a banquet every year, and it's a charity banquet. And they give awards like Firefighter of the Year and different things as part of the night. And it can get kind of stale, listening to speaker after speaker and things like that. And so they were like, we need to do something to liven the event. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I could make a video. And so I actually started on YouTube. And so I made the biggest things that I did it for a while. And I'm actually making one right now, but it was music video parodies.
Yeah. So those are funny.
Yeah. So I'm very, very much into music. That's actually how my wife and I met, was doing music together. Very much into music, play guitar, sing, drums, bass, just lots of instruments, love this stuff. So I made a video, and it was to Lady Antebellum's song, "I Need You Now." And mine was called "My Knee Hurts Now." And the premise of that video was highlighting the system abusers, people that have been having issues for weeks and weeks and weeks, like, my knee's been hurting me for like a month and a half. And then they called 911, at like 3:00 in the morning. And you're like, well, what changed after 6 weeks? And they're like, "Oh, nothing. I'm just tired of it." It's like, can you walk on it? Well, yeah. Can you drive? Yeah. Well, okay. So mine was, it's 1:15. I'm calling 911 because my knee hurts now. No, I didn't fall. I've got no complaints at all. Just my knee hurts now, I made that video. I put it on YouTube so that the guys who couldn't make it to the banquet, who were on shift, could see it. And the next morning, it was well on its way to 1 million views. I was like, holy cow, what just happened?
Wow.
And it just blew up. And I really didn't understand social media then. So I should have capitalized on that momentum that I had, but I just didn't make another video for another year. And then the next year I made another one, and that one blew up. And then I did the same thing. And it literally wasn't until 2018. I was encouraged to you should, I think you're kind of missing the boat here with social media. I think you should really try and, sink your heels in and see what you can come up with, being consistently, creating content consistently. And so I told my wife, this was around Thanksgiving of 2018. I said, hey, I think for the month of December, I'm going to try and put out a piece of content every single day, and we'll see what happens. And so she was like, okay. And so I had 300 followers on Instagram. And so I put out one piece of content every day. And, by the end of that 30 days, I had gained 3,000 followers. So I was 3,300 followers. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And so I just kind of kept doing it. And I started meeting, people through collaborations and relationships and things like that, and other social media police officers and firefighters, and it's been a really, really cool journey, just getting to meet people and talk to people that I saw from a distance, and now I have their phone numbers and we text all the time or talk all the time. It's really cool.
That is cool.
That's awesome. I mean, you have, I mean, for lack of a better word, you really have kind of a massive following. I mean, now you've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, on TikTok, you've got 300 plus thousand, I think. And so, I mean, that growth is just awesome. And for the listeners out there, I go and check them out on most of your videos. You don this big mustache and it's that comedic humor that really kind of brings into maybe even firefighting or just someone else's life and experience. It kind of sucks you in, and it gives you a little bit of insight there. How do you come up with your content? That's a lot of content. Even just like you were saying, a video a day or something like that. That's a lot of content. Is it all just creative, or is it you just, hey, this is a cool idea, this is a cool idea?
It's kind of changed over the years, which I like, because I don't want to be stagnant. I want to continue to change and stretch myself and do different things. But I've kind of got a mix now, where it started out where I would just write, and really what it was what I love to do, what my passion is with comedy is I love to, firefighter. I think it's just life in general, but especially around the fire station, fire scenes, whatever. Somebody's always complaining about something. Somebody's always getting fired up about somebody's always complaining about something. And I started to notice that there's a fine line between anger and comedy, really. So I'm when somebody is complaining about something or is experiencing something or they're annoyed by something, I would write it down. And then I would come back and look at it and be like, man, if I can recreate these moments in a way that is on video where everybody can identify with the character in that video and go, oh my gosh, yes, I hate when that happens, or that's so-and-so, that guy, whatever, blah, blah. And I could create those moments, because when you're in the moment and something's annoying you, that's all you're seeing is just your frustration, your anger, whatever. But if you had that camera from the side watching, it's pretty funny. You're just oh my gosh, and so that was the real thing, is something will happen to me. Most of it is stuff that happens to me, and I'll immediately write it down. My crew will say I'll be like, oh my gosh, I got to write this down. And they'll just, start, for instance, there's a video that I made where we wear headsets on the engines, and take my headset off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dang it. It just pulls a hair out. It's one single hair, but it freaking hurts so bad. And you're like, gosh, dang it. And I'm like,
and every other firefighter has had that same experience.
Exactly. And so I made that video. It blew up. People thought, they're like, yes, oh my gosh. And then you got the bald guys that are like, yeah, it must be nice, So, and then I just started noticing the things and that's something that I've learned is nobody is unique. The things that happen to you happen to everybody. And I apply that to my life in general, even when things aren't so great, just whatever. If I'm struggling with something or frustrated with something, and you feel oh man, why am I the only person this happens to? And then it's no, you're not the only person. There is so many people out there that happens to, whether it's funny or whatever. But yeah, that's my favorite thing. And then obviously the music video parodies.
Do you ever have guys on your crew that are just oh, here Brent goes again? Or do they love that you do it?
No, for the most part, everybody is very, very supportive. Everybody loves it. A lot of guys, guys want to be in the videos, and I love to put the guys in the videos, and it's a good time. I'm sure sometimes they get annoyed, but they're like, oh my gosh, oh yeah, write it down. Okay, blah, blah, But, or especially if it's them that I'm making the butt, I'm like, I'm making a video about you. We buy our dinner, we go to the grocery store every day, we buy our dinners, and then, whoever pays, writes up on the board, hey, chow is, $6.50 or whatever, or $5. And then there'll be a guy that's like, hey man, I only got 4 ones, but I got 2 quarters, a nickel, 15 pennies. You're like, just give me the $4. I'll keep it. I don't care, And so I made a video about that. I'm like, and the guy who was that guy, he didn't know it at the time, but I'm like, hey, you play this character, this whole thing. And then we got done. I was like, you know why you're in that video? Like, why? I'm all, because that is you. And he's like, oh, whatever. But it's awesome because then it creates so much engagement because I'll post that and I'll caption it like, tag that guy. And then it just creates all kinds of, comedy just in the comment section.
Oh yeah. That's good.
So yeah,
that's awesome. Well, go ahead and tell us what your socials are. What's your TikTok handle? What's your Instagram? Your YouTube?
Yeah, so pretty much on everything, it's just it's at Firefighter Fenton. So if you search Firefighter Fenton on YouTube, it'll come up. I picked my username years and years ago, and I can't change it, so it's not like youtube.com/Firefighter Fenton. It's not that. But if you just search Firefighter Fenton, you'll find it. It's at Firefighter Fenton on everything. I do have a Twitter, and that's at Firefighter Fent, because Twitter's dumb and won't let me put the O in on the end.
Character limit.
Exactly. But I share, for the most part, all the stuff across all the platforms. You'll see more long form stuff on Facebook, more long form stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
we'll definitely put your social links in the episode description so that folks can go check you out. And we're also on Instagram, so we'll be maybe posting some of your hilarious videos so folks can link back to you and find those videos.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're coming up on kind of an hour here. Before we close, we wanted to ask you a question. So something we ask every single one of our guests, and it's about a personal creed. So we are our brother's creed, and really what we do is we talk about with all of our guests, first of all, their interesting lives and things that they do, but also what are the principles that guide them in their lives to be a better man or a better person, a better father. And so I was hoping to hear some of your personal creed that you could share with our audience.
Yeah, as far as like, I don't know that I have like something that I like written out as like a statement or anything like that, but there are things that I lessons that I've learned and things that I live by. And, like, so my dad was a police sergeant. Him and my mom have been married, I think it's like 40 something years. So at a young age, I was diagnosed with ADHD and Tourette Syndrome. There's another little thing for you. So I still have Tourette Syndrome. It's very mild. It has gotten more mild as I've gotten older. I think it kind of just is what it is now at this point. But it wasn't very mild when I was young. And so I was really self-conscious about that. I also had red hair and freckles. So I had some character building years for sure. But maybe that's why I'm funny. I don't know. But, my dad, he always taught me, and my mom, that, that they didn't give me any excuses or any crutches. They didn't say, oh, things are going to be hard because you have Tourette syndrome, because you have ADHD. They didn't say that. They're like, no, this is the hand that you were dealt. And you're going to play that hand the best that you can. And that's the things that I teach my sons and my daughters, is, do hard things. Don't be afraid to do hard things, especially as a man. Do hard things, and work is good. Work is a good thing, but so is balance, and so is family. And those are the most important. Family and full life balance is the most important, but do hard things. Anything worth doing or anything worth it is worth working for and working hard at. I also, I love Jesus. I have my faith. So, love Jesus, love people, be nice, do hard things, care for people, and definitely laugh, like making people laugh, laughing at yourself. If you can't laugh at yourself, that sucks. I'm sorry, but, but laugh, don't be easily offended. which I think is something that could be a huge. I think that's something in general the world needs to learn, is how to not be offended, because
Oh yeah.
and I tell my sons, tell my crew, whoever I can, what happens when you get offended? Nothing. You just get offended, and it is what it is. And so just, if you don't like something, look for something else.
Move on.
Move on. Exactly. But yeah, so for me, and also, like I said, I'm a husband. So for the parents out there, for the husbands that are out there, the best thing that you can give your kids is an awesome relationship with their mom. You love their mother well, and you exemplify what it is to love a woman, serve a woman, and that will teach your sons how to treat a woman, and that'll teach them how to be respectful, and that'll also teach your daughters their worth. But love your wife, love your family, love Jesus, love your job, and laugh. That sounds like that really lame sign that you see at the store.
Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh.
So we put over the banister or something in my house. But no, that's great.
It's like totally masculine,
Yeah, no, those were great things. Thank you, Brent, for sharing those things. I think all of those are, that kind of touched on a couple awesome things as far as relationships and fatherhood and husband and religion and just being a good person. All of those points, I think, really fit into what Jared and I are trying to accomplish with the podcast of A Brother's Creed, is just becoming better versions of ourselves. And just like you were talking about being surrounded by a crew and your family and people that love you and support you, and building a net, or like a web of people that are like-minded and that want each other to succeed, it could be a massive benefit in life and support. So that was great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Brent, this has been great. We've had you've shared some funny stories, some ups and some downs, and some serious stuff, and some, just some great advice. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us. And you have such a unique experience in life, and we love your content, and we'll continue to follow you and give you some shout outs and stuff. And so, thank you again for joining. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And for our followers out there, let's build that creed together.